Hi, this is Jen with the Lighten Up method, and I'm going to show you guys how I make bone broth in the Instant Pot. First thing, I have a 6-quart duo here, which is the multifunction pot. Got it off Walmart or Amazon, the usual places. It works really well and efficiently, and it has 2 pressure settings for a low and a high pressure. You can use either setting and you get really good results, but I'm going to use the high pressure today because it will actually extract a little more of the good stuff you're looking for. I wanted to just use what I had in the freezer. So the first thing is I have turkey necks. These came from my butcher where I buy my dog food. And these have been roasted around 375 or so for a couple hours. And what happens is you get this nice yummy stuff stuck to the parchment paper on the pan. So if you get a chance, peel some more of that good stuff off. This is just fun. This is caramelized protein and amino acids and sugars. And this actually, if you can get it off the paper and into your pot, you'll have more flavor. Secondly, I have some roasted vegetables here. This is roasted fennel, and this is roasted onion and carrot. And yes, I have the onion skins on the paper. It doesn't really matter. As long as the onion skins are clean and not moldy, you can use them. I also have parsley and some celery, especially the tops are very flavorful. And I'm going to make a sachet, and what's going to go in the sachet is a bunch of broken up bay leaves. I have about 5 peppercorns, some bashed up garlic, and some poultry seasoning because you know what, this reminds me of Thanksgiving and it's a good way to make extra broth for making gravy maybe. But it's seeing as how it's springtime and Thanksgiving was just a couple months ago and I'm kind of craving the flavors again, I'm going to make basically Thanksgiving flavored broth. So sit tight, we'll get back to the basics and we'll show you how to load the pot. So I have my coffee filter here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. I'm going to put my pieces of bay leaf inside. I'm going to put a little bit of the poultry seasoning in here. Then I'm going to take my 5 peppercorns. And I'm going to fold the edges up so no spices leak out. Then I'm going to whip out my old stapler. Now I have whole peppercorns in here. I can feel them. I want to break those up a little bit. So with the back end of a knife or a heavy glass or a heavy jar, I'm just going to break those up. Just break them open a little bit to get some of those oils activated. Now, what I have here is cheesecloth. This is run this direction and this direction through my pot. There's 2 pieces in here. And what this does is this gives you a sling to load up and you can pull your bones right out when you're finished. I like to do this. You don't have to. It's not required, but it makes straining your broth far easier. So we're going to go ahead and load up the pot. I have my turkey necks. They're broken up into small pieces. You can use backs, wings, feet, any kind of part of the poultry you want to use. They'll give you the best result if you use the multiple joint pieces like the spine and the ankles. And we'll scrape some of this stuff off the pan here. Ooh, here we go. There we go. Not required, but it does help a bit. Okay, the next step is the vegetables. Right into the pan, scattered on top. And then I'll put in my other aromatics, my parsley and my celery. And tucked in the side here, I'm going to put this little envelope, my sachet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather up this cheesecloth and I'm going to tie it, or I can use my little plastic zipped vegetable bag tie and not a paper one because it'll melt and fall apart. But you can actually just kind of twist it, or tie a knot on the cheesecloth. Now I want to leave this a little bit loose. I don't want to have it so tight that water can't get around it. Now what I'm going to do now is, whoops, I forgot my garlic. Shame on me. Let's put some garlic in here. Now I need to caution you about garlic. When you guys use garlic in a long, slow cooking process, the sugars tend to come up really, really high. So what I want you to do is be careful with your garlic. Don't pre-roast it because it's going to go much, much sweeter. And don't go with too much onion, or don't buy sweet onions because you'll get the same problem. The longer you cook onions, you're going to get a lot more sugar extraction out of them, and they're going to turn your broth really, really sweet. That's not what you want. It's not a good balanced flavor. So I've got just about one onion in here. It's been just sliced up, rough chopped. You saw how they were prepared. And I'm not going to cook this very, very long, just about 2 hours under pressure. So I will tie this stuff up. We'll pour water in the pot to 2/3 full. Now, any pressure cooker, this is the general rule. You want to leave 1/3 of room at the top. Unless you have overfilling and you'll have a bad result with your pressure system. Let me check, see where my water level is. I'm not quite there yet. Let's see if you can see the edge of the marking on here. I'm not quite there. I want to get to about right about there. So this is going to make a fairly concentrated broth. The good thing is this won't take up oodles of room in your refrigerator. So when this comes out of the pot and I pull this out, I'll have my clean broth already strained. It'll have a little bit of fat layer on top of it. I put it right back into this pitcher, fits right in the fridge, and it'll be about 2-to-1 ratio. Depending on how much bone you put in here, the recipe will give you the actual bone weight. I just eyeballed this because I had a bag of turkey necks in the freezer. Now, another word on what kind of animals to use. No one says you have to stick with one type of animal in your broth pot. Quite often I make animal broth, and what that means is I have leftover venison bones, or I have leftover buffalo, any kind of other animal I want to throw in here with chicken, maybe some pork. I have no problem mixing my bone flavors. If it's just for bone broth for drinking, doesn't matter to me. You have a recipe, or actually I have a recipe on one of my other sites for a Parmesan tomato broth that uses just the water dripped out of a can of whole peeled tomatoes. And that little acidic punch goes really well in here. So if you wanted to use that as part of your water, go right ahead. So there's no concrete rule on how to flavor your broths. Just go for it. Throw your seasonings in, make it happy, make it easy to drink, and make it something you will drink and not sit in the fridge for a week to go bad. You can make this ahead of time, freeze it in ice cube trays, and bring them out as you need to. If they're 2-to-1, you fill up your glass with ice cubes. You pour your hot water on top of it, let it dissolve, and you have a nice broth at a perfect consistency. I like mine really strong because I like my broth strong, but you can do whatever you want with it, and then you can cook with it as well. So again, no salt in here either because you want to salt it before you drink it. So I'm going to go ahead and load this thing up, tie up the cheesecloth, and we'll get back to setting this thing. Just a quick hint here, you can take the ends of your cheesecloth and tie, both directions together and then the opposite directions together. But I've tied them together actually at the top too, so now I have a handle to pull my bones out with. So keep that in mind as you're measuring out your cheesecloth. Do it by eye, but give yourself enough room to actually make yourself a little loop to get that stuff out early. When this comes out, you're going to want to have a big bowl next to you and a strainer so you can actually land it in a strainer, let the broth drip out into the bowl, and you can dump the bowl back into the pot later, and then you can cool it down. I'll show you how we cool it down later. Alrighty, so I have my pot loaded. I have my vent in the closed position. I'm going to go to the front here. I'm going to push pressure, or manual actually, and I'm going to hit the pressure button to bring it up to the high pressure, and I'm going to increase this to 120 minutes. That's just 2 hours. Now, because of the volume of water and bones in here, this thing will take quite a long time to decompress, so let it decompress naturally. If you open this thing up when it's still boiling hot, it's going to want to kind of create a geyser effect, so don't do that. Let it go. It's a normal process. Let it decompress on its own, and then once you can open it, we'll shove ice wands in. So here we go. It'll be cooking for an hour, or actually 2 hours, and we'll check back.